Alrighty, so this is probably one of the rare time that I actually have some alone time and actually have some time to do a video while I am in Japan. I mean, I've already mentioned it in the beginning of the trip or prior to beginning of the trip that most likely I won't really have too much time to do video or even keep up with MLS action. But, despite the fact that I haven't been able to do so and I didn't really watch most of these games from this match week, which I think it's match week number 9. I still am going to just kind of do a quick recap because I did read some article, especially from Matt Doyle when he basically does the article recapping all the games and talk about all the stuff that happened in those games. I basically use that as a way to kind of talk about each of these games, and that is kind of like almost a mini recap that I'm going to do in terms of match week number 9. And mind you, there were some cracking games in match week number 9. I mean, there were some games that were bonkers, and there was games that, old narrative, once again, service for some of these teams. But we start off by talking about the first game, which is Atlanta United versus FC Cincinnati. And keep in mind, because I don't have a board and also I don't have a jersey because I didn't bring any jersey throughout this trip, this is just going to be a quick recap throughout this. Not going to be very, very detailed in terms of talk about each of these games, but we start off with the first one between Atlanta versus FC Cincinnati, and this was a big win for Cincinnati. I mean, it was a much-needed win for them because things were looking a little bit dire for Cincinnati in these last couple of games, but they pull off a big win in this one on the road against an Atlanta team that has been very good this season at home. And Atlanta actually got the opening goal as Amado would score from Mascara to make it 1-0 in the 59th minute. But then Oriana would score from Acosta to tie the game up. And then 2 minutes later, they score again. It's Lucho Acosta from Yetland to make it 2-1 in this one, and that would be the final score. And in some way, it's very similar to how they were able to get the win against New England, where they found themselves 1-0 down and then scored 2 quick goals in the second half to come from behind and get a win. But like I said, this is a big win for them because this team has been really struggling. Most part of that is mainly that the offense hasn't really got going, and in some way they kind of got going a little bit in this one. But obviously they'll definitely take the 3 points because they've been on a bit of a mini skid. But for Atlanta, yeah, it feels like they're starting to have the same problem as last season where, we talk about last season at times. We saw Atlanta play some beautiful soccer at home and at sometimes on the road too, but they just can't keep it consistently. And this is also why if I don't know if I said this, Atlanta is truly back a couple of weeks. If I did, I apologize to Atlanta United fans and fans because, as I said, those 3 words seems like it's curse words in Atlanta United fan base, because anytime you say that they're back and they put these kind of performance at home. Now, we move on to Columbus versus the Portland Timbers. So keep in mind, Columbus does have a midweek game. They're going to be playing in the semifinal against Rayados in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and that they're actually the last MLS team in the competition right now. But yeah, this was a game where, the Timbers, they got off to a good start in the 10th minute. Felipe Mora scored from Williamson and Moreno. By the way, they actually put secondary assists on the league website. Now, I always love to see that they put the secondary assist now. I don't know why they didn't do it before. But in the 51st minute, Cucho would then score from Rossi and Farsi to make it 1-1 in that one. I mean, Rossi and Farsi, that kind of rhymes. But the Timbers did get one back as Santi Moreno would score from Evander and Mora to make it 2-1 in favor of the Timbers. But Columbus would respond as Steven Moreira would score from Aiden Morris to tie the game up at 2 apiece, because that Columbus, they don't lose often at home, and that's kind of the reason why, because they always have a way to fight back and able to get a I mean, I would say it's still a good resort for them, because obviously I know Wilfred Nancy is very focusing on what's going to happen in the middle of the week. But obviously I know, in these last couple of games they have slowed down a little bit. They're not getting as much wins as possible, but again, that's kind of expected when you have MLS team focus on league play and also CONCACAF Champions Cup at the same time. But for the Portland Timbers, it's now 6 games without a win. And again, depending on how you look at this, you can look at it as a Timbers fan of just saying that, well, yes, we're 6-game winless, but we have been having some really tough schedule lately. We've been playing some really tough teams lately, and we've been able to grind out a draw out out of that. I mean, they grounded the draw against LAFC, and now they did it against the defending MLS Cup champion. But if you're more of a pessimist Timbers fan or more of a cynical Timbers fan, you could say that this is not good enough. I mean, 6 games without a win. They have not won ever since they got off to a good start where they actually found themselves at first place in the West at the beginning of the season, and it's been kind of a bit of a downward spiral ever since that. It feels like maybe this is kind of due to the new head coach boost. You know, Phil Neville coming in seems like he's giving the mojo to this team, but now it seems like it's kind of gone with the way that this team is on a 6-game winless run. Then we look at the next match, which is Miami versus Nashville. And, well, Nashville, you know, the only positive thing is that they at least took the lead in this one early, as in the third minute, or the second minute, actually, Negri actually scored an own goal in this to give Nashville 1-0 lead. But that was as good as Nashville would get for the rest of the game, because Miami pretty much dominated this game. The rest of the way, Messi would score from Suarez to tie the game up at 1 apiece in the 39th minute. Busquets would score from Messi in the 39th to take the lead for Miami, and then Messi would score from the spot in the 81st minute. So good night here for Leo Messi. I mean, 2 goals and 1 assist. I wouldn't be surprised. He might be voted for Player of the Week, because, you know, anytime when Messi is considered to be that award, you know he's probably going to win that. So, yeah, obviously, it's a good win for Inter Miami, but for Nashville, yeah, the rough season continue. I mean, this has been a very rough season for them, and it's not a big surprise that this has been a rough season, mainly due to the fact that not only they're not scoring goals, but the defense has started to not play as well as they have. And that's not a big surprise, because this defense has done a carry job for this team for the past couple of years, and now it seems like the cracks are starting to finally show on this defensive front for this Nashville team. Now, we move on to Montreal versus Orlando City. So, yeah, this was a game. It looked like Montreal was going to get all 3 points, and then Orlando kind of stole a point late in this one. Now, early on, in the 16th minute, Mason Toye gets back on the score sheet. It's been a long time since Mason Toye has scored a goal for Montreal. I also kind of surprised the fact that he's still with Montreal after all these years, after he got traded from Minnesota. But he scored for Piet to make it 1-0 in favor of Montreal. So you talk about two kind of unlikely as kind of goal scoring and assists. I mean, I know Mason Toye is a number 9, but he hasn't scored in a long time, so it's quite surprising that he finally got a goal here. And then Samuel Piet, I mean, he's not known to be a guy that gets on the assist chart that often. So, yeah, that gave Montreal 1-0 lead. That lead quickly disappeared in the 22nd minute when Facundo Torres was able to tie the game up for Orlando. And then we move late in the game. It looks like this is going to end in a draw. But then in the 88th minute, Lassiter would score from Sanusi Ibrahim to make it 2-1. And again, this is where I thought maybe Montreal's got all 3 points again at home. However, Angulo would score from Ojeda and McGuire in the 2nd minute of stoppage time. And like I said, Orlando, they stole a point in this one. I mean, you know, they're still not playing relatively well, Orlando, and that, you know, in some way they kind of started to once again steal some resort and kind of show them that cardiac cats kind of moment we've seen Orlando City has done. But hey, they'll definitely take a point against a Montreal team that, yeah, they'll be very disappointed. I mean, I know Laurent Courtois will not be happy the fact that his team dropped points in this one. Defense has started to become a bit of an issue for this Montreal team. They've been giving up a lot of goals lately. So, yeah, that's going to be something that Laurent Courtois might have to address. Or maybe that's just kind of how it is, because, you know, as we see with what Laurent Courtois is trying to do, something similar to what Wilfried Nancy and trying to bring Nancy Ball back to Montreal. Nancy Ball is known to provide some really good attacking threat, but on the defensive front, that's when it can be a little bit problematic. And we kind of saw with Columbus too in the early days of Nancy Ball just really struggling on the defensive front. Then we go to NYCFC versus DC United. So NYCFC getting the 2-0 win, and this was almost a carbon copy of the win that they had against New England. So they got an early lead in this one. It's Santi Rodriguez scoring from Wolf and Bakra. So yeah, Munsa Bakra actually got on the assist chart. So if you can't score, you might as well just be on the assist chart. And then in the first minute of stoppage time, once again, Julian Fernandez called game. He scored here from Rodriguez to make it 2-0 in favor of NYCFC. And yeah, slowly NYCFC has started to kind of get themselves back on track. I mean, it's been a bit of a slow start for them. Obviously, I know there was a lot of NYCFC fans that been wanting Cushion's head for a long time, but they're starting to win games, and it's not a big surprise that they're starting to win games now that they're playing at home. They are usually a very good home team, and they did show that in this one, getting the 2-0 win against DC. But for DC, yeah, things are started to kind of slow down for them, and that, Troy Lesesne, after all the good things that he has done for this DC team in the last couple of games, it's been kind of a bit of a slum, and it hasn't been looking good for them. And you just wonder, maybe reality started to set in with DC, because, this is a team that I think early on, while they've been playing very well, they definitely overachieve a little bit, and maybe now signs are starting to slow down, that they're back to where they probably will be for the rest of the season, which is kind of a bit of a mediocre team, which I think DC fans will accept, because, last season was just an absolute disaster for them. But we move on into the next one. So speaking of a team that has been really slowed down and reality has set in, and of course the Toronto. So despite the fact that I say that, I might have been over dramatic a little bit, because technically Toronto is still above the playoff line right now. Though that being said, they did play against New England, and yeah, it's safe to say that there's got to be panic in Revs fan base right now, because this is not good whatsoever. I mean, it's one thing that they've been struggling because of CONCACAF Champions Cup kind of commitment, but they're still struggling right now. I mean, they just look nothing like a team that can really pull out of this, and this 1-0 loss is the latest of it. The only goal was scored from Prince Owusu. He scored from Jaquel Marshall ready to give Toronto a 1-0 lead in the 66th minute, and they held on to that lead. Tell you what, Prince Owusu, he started to score a couple more goals. He started to be a big offensive weapon for this Toronto team, which is, again, something I didn't expect in the beginning of the season. But yeah, good on Toronto. Finally got out of their little downward slide in the past couple of games. Though, if you're TFC fans, you still say that, this is still too good to be true, and that you basically just play against the worst team in the East, in New England. And like I said, the Revs, I don't know what to say. I mean, this team, it's if it wasn't for a certain other team that I'll talk about, and the certain other team that I root for that is having a disastrous season, I would say that they could be on point of winning the Wooden Spoon this year, because of how bad the start has been for Caleb Porter. And you also wonder, I know this is the first season for Caleb Porter, but if this continue, I'm pretty sure the Revs are not going to wait for them to potentially let go of Caleb Porter and think that he's not the right guy for this job. Then we go to Chicago versus RSL. So speaking of another team that is really struggling right now, and that, of course, is Chicago. So again, the story of Chicago and the narrative is one step forward, two step back, because, after they got a big win a couple of weeks ago at home against Houston, they do this and just completely lay an egg against RSL. And when I mean they lay an egg, they absolutely got thrashed by RSL in this one. In the first half, 24 minutes in, Gomez would score from Catarnas and Arango to make it 1-0 in favor of RSL. And then Chicho Arango would score another goal in the 33rd minute before scoring again in the 37th as he scored from Oviedo to make it 3-0 in favor of RSL. Safe to say that Chicho Arango is back, and he could definitely be coming for the Golden Boot this year. And then to add the icing on the cake, in the third minute stoppage time, Diego Luna would score from Arango to make it 4-0 in favor of RSL. So yeah, this was just a total dominant performance by RSL, and this is not a big surprise, because last year we know this team is a very good road team. I mean, I think they would tie with wins with Minnesota last season on the road. But for Chicago, yeah, this is really concerning. And this has started become like what we've seen in previous season with the Fire. It's just, again, one step forward, two step back. Whenever they seems to make progress, then they kind of get in their own way. Now, moving on in the next match is the Dynamo versus Austin, and this probably was the most surprising result of the week because, yeah, I did not expect Austin to get all 3 points in this one, especially with Hector Herrera returning for Houston. I thought this was going to be an easy win for the Dynamo, but that's not the case. In fact, I would say that this was kind of a smash and grab for Austin, and you know that this game is crazy and that this is a very unexpected result when Emmanuel Rigoni would score the winning goal from forgery in the 88th minute to give Austin all 3 points. I mean, that is, I'm pretty sure every Austin fans are probably thinking, are we in the right dimension, or are we in the right time space? Because there is no way in the world Emmanuel Rigoni would get a Copa Tias win. And the thing about Austin, it's kind of weird, is that as bad as they've been, they have been able to do well when they face against Texas team. It feels like maybe they're taking Copa Tias very seriously this season, knowing the fact that they're probably going to be bad for the rest of the year. But yeah, like I said, this was a very surprising result. And what's even more surprising is that Houston pretty much doubled the amount of chances that Austin would get throughout this game. I mean, they absolutely dominated this game against Austin. But it's just one of those games where we've seen this before, where it doesn't matter if you dominate at home against your opposition. You don't put the ball into the back of the net, this is, of course, going to happen. So, yeah, Dynamo fans will be absolutely fuming that they didn't get anything out of this, and especially letting a guy that the likes of Emmanuel Rigoni would get the winner. Again, it just feels like surreal to see him scoring the winning goal, considering, you know, he's been just now really considered to be one of the biggest busts in terms of DPs in MLS history. Now, we move on to Sporting KC versus St. Louis, and I gotta say, the two rivalry game that we got, the Cali Clasico and the Midwestern Derby, again, I don't know exactly if they have come up with a name for that, so I'm gonna just call it a Midwest Derby. Man, these two rivalry games were absolutely bonkers. I mean, this one ended in a free draw, and I gotta say, unfortunately, old narrative has risen again for Sporting KC. Like they're sort of becoming like Shard FC and the Columbus Crew in the previous year. And those two teams I mentioned, what do they have in common? Dropping points in winning position, and that it happened again at home in this game. So early on in the 17th minute, Polito would score from Agata to make it 1-0 in favor of Sporting, but St. Louis did get the equalizer in the 31st. Joao Klaus would score from and Durkin to tie the game up at 1 apiece. And then before halftime, Pompeo would score from Klaus to give St. Louis a 2-1 lead. But unfortunately, they weren't able to hold the lead for the second half because Berkey would score an own goal in this one. I'm not sure exactly what was the own goal there because I wasn't able to watch this game. And like I said, I didn't watch most of these games. The only two games I watched was like the Sunday action, and even then it was just a little bit of it. But yeah, Berkey would score an own goal here to tie the game up, and then Eric Tommy would score to make it 3-2 as he scored from Fontes here. But unfortunately, just like what we saw a couple of weeks ago against Inter Miami, when Eric Tommy looked like he gets the big goal for Sporting KC, they find a way to blow it because the second minute of stoppage time, Thomas Totland would score his first career MLS goal from Joao Klaus to tie the game up at 3 apiece. And honestly, if you're a Sporting KC fan, you're almost kind of expecting that you're gonna concede late in the game because again, this is happening almost actually not even almost, but it literally happens every home game. It's kind of how ridiculous that it's been happening every single game, and we've seen this before where when teams have these kind of resort, most of them don't really make it to the playoffs, let alone even go on a deep playoff run that what Sporting KC is hoping for. So yeah, it's got to be very frustrating for Sporting KC. And honestly, I think every Sporting KC fans know what's the reason behind this. The reason behind this is because Peter Vermees just doesn't make subs. And he even had the dare to say that he doesn't seem like there's an issue when it comes to all these blown leads, even though it's pretty clear that there is an issue. And the main issue is him not making subs to kind of freshen things up and just kind of completely let his squad hung out to dry, and teams are able to take advantage of it. So yeah, again, it's got to be very frustrating if you're a Sporting KC seeing this every single time, and we'll see if it's going to be the same case when they face against Minnesota. I mean, as a Minnesota United fan, I hope it is still the same case, but yeah, again, I can understand then why Sporting KC fans are very frustrated. I mean, as a Quakes fan as well, I can also understand because the Quakes have also blown a lot of leads, especially on the road this season. But yeah, it ends in a free draw on this one, and for St. Louis, it's another draw for them, which technically should be a negative thing because they're drawing way too much this season. But considering the fact that they were about to lose this game, I think they'll take the draw out of this one. And then we go to Colorado versus FC Dallas, and I gotta say, if it wasn't for a scoring change late in or after this game, we would have saw probably the first time a team would score 3 goals in a game and they still somehow lose 2-1 in this one, because it looks like Dallas actually scored 2 own goals in this one, but they eventually did change one of the own goals and give credit to one of the Rapids player. But that being said, in terms of the first own goal that was scored, it was scored in the 15th minute. Ibiaga, or actually not the 15th minute, I'm sorry, but the 45th minute when Ibiaga scored an own goal here to make it 1-0 in favor of the Rapids. And then the 49th minute, this was originally supposed to be an own goal for Sam Junker, but then they later changed to a goal that was scored by a Rapids player, and that Rapids player is Calvin Harris. So he scored here from Cabral and Mihajlovic to make it 2-0 in favor of the Rapids. I have a feeling that whoever is the scorekeeper, they probably listened to This Is What You Came For and really enjoyed that song so much, so that's why he gave the goal to Calvin Harris. But in the 87th minute, Pedro Musa would score from Fraser to make it 2-1 in favor of Dallas. And also, for those of you're wondering, no, I am not going to stop making Calvin Harris reference every time Calvin Harris scores. He's considered is one of my favorite DJ in the world, and again, I'm not going to stop making that reference every time Calvin Harris scored for the Rapids. But in the 87th minute, Pedro Musa did score from Fraser to make it 2-1 and at least give some life for Dallas. But again, it was not meant to be, as again the Rapids, they get the big win out of this game. They're now all the way up to 4th place in the Western Conference. Who would have saw that coming? But for Dallas, yeah, this is bad. I mean, it's an absolute free fall right now. And if it wasn't for a certain team that I'll also mention that I support, they probably would be right now fighting for the wooden spoon spot in the Western Conference. But now moving on in the next game, and did I say wooden spoon? Well, yeah, it's technically is, because as I'll talk about the team that I root for that's currently in the wooden spoon spot, so that they're currently actually dead last in the West. But now we go to the next one, which is LAFC versus the New York Red Bulls. And I got to say, the Red Bulls almost pulled this off. I mean, they almost got a massive 3 points and become a rare team to walk away Bank of California Stadium, or it's not called Bank of California Stadium, it's called BMO Field. Sometimes I still refer it to Bank of California Stadium. I mean, it is named after a bank. After all. But anyway, in the 8th minute, there was an own goal by Eddie Segura. There was a lot of own goals this week. But in the 67th minute, Bouanga did score on the penalty spot to tie the game up at 1 apiece, only for Emil Forsberg would score from Nealis to give the Red Bulls the lead back. And it looked like the Red Bulls was going to hold on for a massive 3 points on the road against LAFC. Again, not a lot of team able to come in to BMO Stadium and get all 3 points, but LAFC did get a late equalizer, and guess who? It's Denis Bouanga. Oh boy, well, you better believe he needed these 2 goals badly, because I mentioned how much Bouanga has really struggled this season for LAFC, but he scored a crucial goal here from Chanel and Palencia to tie the game up at 2 apiece. So Chanel on the primary assist. I mean, that's a rare feat to say. He's not a guy that's known to get assists, but yeah, that salvage a draw for LAFC in this one. I mean, I don't know if either of these teams are going to be happy with this result. I mean, for LAFC, I guess they maybe be happy that they salvage a draw, but obviously with the standards that LAFC has, especially, they've been very good at home throughout their time in MLS. They'll always be disappointed if they draw points at home. But for the Red Bulls, I mean, I don't think they'll be happy either. Even though I know as a road team, you'll definitely take the point. The fact that you gave up a 5th-minute stoppage time goal, I mentioned it before, anytime when you give up a stoppage time goal to draw points, it doesn't matter if you're the home team or the road team, it's got to be very frustrating and feel like it's 2 point drop, or even 1 point drop if you're if the game is tied up before you gave up the winner, and then you actually gain all 3 points or even get a point out of the game. Now, moving on, we got Seattle versus Vancouver, and this is the final Saturday game that I'll talk about. And it's the Whitecaps getting a 2-0 win against the Sounders. There was actually a red card in the 43rd minute from Jackson Reagan. I heard a lot of Seattle fans were saying that shouldn't have been a red card. They actually did the VAR announcement, and now we do have the new rule where VAR announcement is going to be made by the referee after it's been after the ref checked the VAR screen. But also we have the new rule where if you're a player that is down for a certain amount of time, you're basically have to stay on the sideline for a bit. And part of the reason why they do that is because they don't want to see the time wasting when it comes to players just lying on the ground and kind of do the dark arts to waste sometimes. But like I said, Jackson Reagan got a red card controversially, and that the Sounders were down to 10 men, but the Whitecaps take advantage of it, as in the 58th, Ryan Gaul would score from Adekube and Kubas to make it 1-0, and then White would score in the 71st minute. He scored from Blackman to make it 2-0 in favor of the Whitecaps. Christian Rodon would also get a second yellow card in this one, or actually, was it a second yellow or a straight red? Either way, the Sounders were down to 9 men, and yeah. The Sounders has been a struggle this season. I mean, this is just the latest resort of that. And it's also not surprising because, they're playing against a Whitecaps team that feels like everything is going right for a Vanni Sartini team right now. And again, I know the narrative will say, well, they've been having a very easy schedule, and this was another easy team that they faced. Not so much. I mean, they haven't really gotten a lot of wins against the Sounders at Lumen Field. In fact, it's been a long time since they actually got all 3 points against the Sounders on the road. This place has kind of been a bit of a nightmare and a house of horror for them. So to get all 3 points, even though they're playing against a Sounders team that you could maybe argue this might be the worst Sounders team we have seen, probably even worse than when they missed the playoffs in 2020. One for the first time, or was it 2021 or 22? It was one of those years, and at least that team in the beginning looked really good, and that was also the team that won the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and still are the only MLS team to win the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Now we get to the Sunday game, and the Sunday game is actually the one that I at least watch a little bit of it, and I don't know if I explained in the beginning of this video. The reason why I haven't been able to watch any of these MLS games is because I've been relatively busy doing sightseeing, but also it's kind of impossible for me to watch these games when I don't have Wi-Fi. Yes, I know I do have a data plan, but it's not unlimited. I mean, it's limited, and I do not want to burn those data on just watching these games. And then, not to mention, I know some people will say, well, in Japan there's a lot of free Wi-Fi, and yes, they do have free Wi-Fi here, but most of the ones that I connected, they suck. Like they really suck. They cannot watch. I can barely like some of the free Wi-Fi connect here. I can barely watch the game. I think there's only like one time where I actually was able to connect it, and I was able to watch a YouTube video and so forth. But yeah, those public Wi-Fi they are not very good, and that's kind of the reason why I haven't been able to watch a lot of these games. But I did watch at least part of this one between Minnesota versus Charlotte, and I gotta say, I did not see this one coming, especially with the way that it was announced that Hugo Baccarat will be out at least for a couple of months because of undergoing meniscus surgery, and the fact that the Loons were already very shorthanded at the back. I did not expect them to walk into Bank of America Stadium playing against Charlotte, who has been playing very well lately, and they put up a 3-0 win against Charlotte FC. But what's even more surprising out of this win is that Eric Ramsey actually took a bit of a gamble in this one, decided to completely change the formation and completely change the line as well. And when you see a head coach does that, it could go both ways. It could go really good and it can work out, or it could go absolutely disastrous and it just does not work out. More time or not, it's the latter that is the case, but this is one of the times where it actually worked as a charm. But in the 31st minute, Minnesota gets the early goal. It's Oluwashari. He scored from Lud to make it 1-0 in favor of Minnesota. Tani Oluwashari actually got the start in this one. And I got to say, I was a little skepticism because I thought he was going to be a player that I thought would be more dangerous coming off the bench instead of starting. And I know this is just one game, and I'll probably still have this kind of thinking. But yeah, it was kind of impressive, the fact that, getting the start in this one, he still made as much impact during the beginning and even as the game goes along compared to when he, of course, coming off the bench. Because I really feel like he's kind of one of those players that will work very well when he comes off the bench rather than starting. But he definitely make a mark here, scoring here to make it 1-0 in favor of Minnesota. And also, I know some Loons fan will say, well, we just got the next Mason Toy here. Let's just hold those kind of comparison, and especially let's just hope that he will not eventually end up the latter year when Mason Toy was with the Loons and how bad he kind of was, and eventually was traded to Montreal because of that. But in the 49th minute, Lud would get on the score sheet. He scored from Fragapane and Rosales. I got to say, Franco Fragapane, he has really revitalized himself in these last couple of games. I mean, he's kind of been a bit of a forgotten man for Minnesota, but, in this game, he's definitely shown out, and it was kind of the same case in the last game, too, scoring that equalizer. But in the 53rd minute, Hassani Dotson would score from Lud to make it 3-0 in favor of Minnesota. So Robin Lud, very good game in this one, a goal and 2 assists. I mean, he's probably going to be in contention for a player of the week, but I doubt that he's going to win, considered he's going to have to go against the likes of Messi and Chicho Arango, and those are players that is going to be very tough to be considered. Both of them did relatively. I wouldn't say Lud didn't do well in this game in terms of his accuracy, but I'm pretty sure Messi and Arango did a little bit better in terms of accolade than what Lud did. Not to say that Lud didn't do much in this game. He definitely did a lot. He was the key contributor in all 3 of these goals. And yeah, in the end, Minnesota, they get a 3-0 win in this one. And again, this is one of those rare Minnesota games. And I don't get to see this a lot, where I almost forgot how it feels like to watch Minnesota United games without being just absolutely stressed out about the resort so forth. I mean, so many of these Loons games has been relatively tight, and that this is one of those rare games where I could just sit back and ready to sing Wonderwall when they get all 3 points on the road. But for Charlotte, yeah, this was arguably the worst game that they played this season. And I think the reason why they played so bad in this game, they couldn't break down this Minnesota backline. And I talk about the attack doing very well for Minnesota. I got to give credit to the defense as well. The defense played very well in this game as well. And that, yeah, Charlotte just could not break them down because they don't have any creative quality kind of up front to really break the line of Minnesota United. And their defense, even though they're a little shorthanded, they still been playing relatively well as the season goes along. And then finally, we talk about the crazy game between the Galaxy versus the Quakes. So again, this is kind of a game that just almost kind of reminds you of why the Cali Clasico should not be forgotten as a major rivalry. Yes, I know the Galaxy are probably going to have ownage on the Quakes for the next couple of years because the Quakes just simply suck right now. But this is kind of a game that just kind of brings me back memories of some of those old Cali Clasico games that were just incredibly high scoring, just incredibly entertaining. And it's also not surprised that these games are entertaining, mainly because I think the Galaxy trying to do so. Because I swear, the Galaxy this season, they're on point of not only trying to finish at the top of the Western Conference, but they're trying to make all these games that they play the most watchable game that any team would play. And I'm not sure if Galaxy fans are necessarily that happy that they would also get the accolade. I mean, they'll definitely get the accolade of finishing first and maybe win the Supporters Shield, but in terms of watchability, and you want to make the game unnecessary and intense like what we saw in this one, yeah, I don't think that's something that Galaxy fans would want to do. And believe me, too, coming from when Almeida used to coach for the Quakes and when he played that kind of watchable kind of brand of soccer, that roller coaster style soccer, you do not want to get involved in a situation where you watch your team play beautiful soccer, but at the time you also give up a lot of goals and make these games crazy entertaining for neutral to watch, but not necessarily fun to watch if you're rooting for one of the these teams or rooting for your team that is winning the game and potentially blowing it late in this one. Now, in the 14th minute, Gabriel Peck would score from Jovic and Puig to make it 1-0 for the Galaxy, and then Joseph Paintsil would score again to make it 2-0, continue his early contention of winning newcomer of the year. Then Yoshida would score from Paintsil to make it 3-0 for the Galaxy. The Quakes did get one back as Rodriguez would score from Espinoza to make it 3-1 in this one, because it seems like for the Quakes, only defenders can score this season for this team. Puig would then make it 4-1 in favor of Peck and Jovic, and at this point you're thinking, well, it's done. Like this game looks like it's just going to be a laughter, right? Well, again, this is the Galaxy. They like to make things unnecessarily tense at times. So Kikanovic would score from Espinoza to make it 4-2 in this game, and then it got really interesting when Zavaleta would get a red card here for denial of goal score opportunity on that foul in the box, and it also gives a penalty for the Quakes, and he bobously buries it to make it 4-3 in this one, and I'm just thinking, oh boy, this feels like it's either false hope or the Quakes are about to complete one of the craziest comeback I've seen that they, of course, have done. Unfortunately, it's the first part. It was complete false hope, despite the fact that they did had some chances late to tie the game up at 4 apiece. The Galaxy escaped. They win 4-3 in this one. And again, I'll just say this for the Galaxy, not just because I'm maybe a little bit disappointed that the Quakes come up short in this one, but they cannot keep doing this. They simply cannot. If they want to compete for MLS Cup this season, they cannot have these kind of games where they just make it unnecessary tense and just giving up a lot of goals. This kind of feels a little bit like what we saw a couple of years ago when the Galaxy was actually still doing well. I think it was like 2019 when they had Zlatan in this team. They were scoring a lot of goals, but was also giving up a lot of goals. This has kind of started to sound very familiar to them. And again, we've seen before where, just because it's not very often when a team is able to score a lot of goals but give up a lot of goals on the other end, would actually do well in the playoffs. I mean, I know some people will say, well, what about Columbus? Well, the thing about Columbus last year is that they eventually tightened up on the defensive front, and Nancy Ball eventually, they kind of outscored their opponent a little bit, but the defense kind of tightened up, and that's how they won MLS Cup. That is something the Galaxy need to do, because, they can't have these kind of high-scoring games and expect that's gonna be sustainable for the rest of the season to get them to some good places. But either way, still they'll be happy. They got all 3 points again, and that again they definitely give the fans and especially the neutral a show in terms of how the game went down. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of this quick recap. Well, I said it's a quick recap. It's like 37 minutes long in terms of looking at all these games. But yeah, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this quick recap? No guarantee that I'm going to do something similar next week as well, because like I said, this is one of the rare times that I actually have some alone time and I'm not actually out there sightseeing or even keep keep track of any new news, and hope that the Wi-Fi outside, or the public Wi-Fi outside is working. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.